Hello, everyone. It's good to be back with you again as we continue our study in the book of Daniel. Remember where we're going with this. We're not just in the book of Daniel, but we're trying to also connect to the destruction of Jerusalem and then connect that with the book of Revelation. That doesn't mean they're always connected, but we are going to see a pattern with God and who this God that we serve and see who and how he operates. And I think we're going to learn a lot from these lessons. So I've entitled the book of Daniel, The God Who Rules the Nations. And we need to know that so badly today. All right. So as we get started today, here's some of the purposes that I want to try to bring out in the book of Daniel. One is we need to learn our Bibles better. All of us do, including myself. And this is going to help us. This is a deep class, but it's good, and it's good to bring this whole Bible together. Secondly, I want us to understand that God works the same way in the Old Testament as he does in the New. He's still the same God, and he still has these same patterns to him. I think we're going to learn that. We don't want to compartmentalize God and say God acted one way in the Old Testament and a different way in the New Testament. Many believe that, and as we're going to see, that's just not true. Thirdly, I want us to learn that God cared about the Gentiles in the Old Testament. We need to understand that, and we're going to see that especially today, that God was after the Gentiles. He wanted to save the Gentiles, and he wasn't just after the Jews. So we're going to see just how much he cared about some Gentiles today. Second of all, to know that God is in total control of our world. Fifth of all, I want us to stop as along the way here, and we're going to examine both the Jehovah's Witness, the Seventh-day Adventists, and the premillennialist doctrines, because they're found in the book of Daniel and Revelation. These denominations format their religion around these books, and I want to see how they take these out of their context and make them say something the Bible never did. So the better that we get to know these chapters, the better we're going to be able to study with these people and understand where they're coming from and to show them the truth of God's Word. So we're going to do all of that as we go through these books. Okay, here's our memory verse today. And the memory verse is actually found in the chapter we're going to go through today. It's in Daniel chapter 2, verse 44, but let's read it all together. It says, "In the time of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, but it will itself endure forever." Boy, that's an important verse. That's an important verse. We've seen kingdoms come, we've seen them go, but this kingdom is going to last forever, and it's telling us when that kingdom will be set up. So let's see as we go through our lesson today, because this is an important verse. So we have went through the history and background of the book of Daniel, trying to show how Daniel got to Babylon. And that's where he's at now. He's in the land of Babylon. He's been taken away into slavery. And eventually the rest of the Jews will follow him. And that's when the book of Daniel is going to be written. That was chapter 1. Now we're in Daniel chapter 2. And we're going to really deal with this king Nebuchadnezzar. He's the Babylonian king, and he is going to have a dream. Okay? And this is found in Daniel chapter 2. So let's get started. So there he is. He's having this dream. He's moved by it. Watch what happens. In the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His spirit was troubled, and his sleep left him. Then the king commanded that the magicians, the enchanters, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, be summoned to tell the king his dreams. So they came in and stood before the king, and the king said to them, "I had a dream, and my spirit is troubled to know the dream." Then the Chaldeans said to the king in Aramaic. Okay, so this is where the Old Testament changes over from Hebrew to Aramaic. And why Aramaic? Because they're in Babylon. Okay, all right. So we've got a couple different languages the Bible is being written in here. He says, O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. Right? Hey, you tell us what you dreamed, and we'll give you an interpretation. Have you ever had a dream that really troubled you? I mean, a dream that just seemed so real. I mean, and you thought about it all day, or maybe for days or weeks. I've had some dreams like that before that really moved me. Well, this is where King Nebuchadnezzar is. He is really moved and troubled by this dream. Verse 4. Then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic, O king, live forever. Tell us the dream of your servants, and we will declare the interpretation. The king replied to the Chaldeans, the command from me is firm. If you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation, you will be torn limb from limb, and your houses will be made of a rubbish heap. But if you declare the dream and its interpretation, you will receive from me gifts and a reward and great honor. Therefore declare to me the dream and its interpretation. Now the king's really putting a lot on him here, isn't he? He's saying, look, I want you to tell me what the dream is and give me the interpretation, and I'll bless you guys forever. If not, I'm going to take you out. They answered a second time and said, King, let the king tell the dream to his servants, and we will declare the interpretation. Just tell us the dream. The king replied, I know for certain that you are bargaining for time, inasmuch as you have seen that the command from me is firm, that if you do not make the dream known to me, there is only one decree for you. For you have agreed together to speak lying and corrupt words before me until the situation is changed. Therefore tell me the dream, that I may know that you can declare it to me and its interpretation. You know what King Nebuchadnezzar is doing here? I think he is really searching for God. He is putting these sorcerers and these magicians and his enchanters to the test. And I think that he's saying, look, if you can't tell me the dream, if you can't tell me the interpretation, then you guys really aren't who you say you are. And I really believe that King Nebuchadnezzar is searching for the truth. He's searching for the true God of heaven. And he's not getting it from these guys, is he? So watch what happens. The Chaldeans answered the king and said, there's not a man on earth who could declare the matter for the king, inasmuch as no great king or ruler has ever asked anything like this of any magician, conjurer, or Chaldean. Moreover, the thing which the king demands is difficult, and there is no one else who can declare it to the king except God's, small g, whose dwelling place is not with mortal flesh. You know what these guys are saying is they're telling the truth. Man can't do this. We don't have the ability to do this. But wait a minute, that's what you've propped yourselves up to teach, and people believe in you. But now you're coming clean and going, we can't do this. Never could do this. Only the gods. Actually, only God can. And you're right. His dwelling place isn't with man. So I wonder if God here isn't not only going to work in Nebuchadnezzar's life, but also in these enchanters' lives. Does he care about them? Does God of heaven care about these people? Oh, let's see. Because of this, the king became indignant and very furious and gave orders to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. So the decree went out went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they looked for Daniel and his friends to kill them. They're going to die too, because they're in the group. Remember, they've been brought from Judah, and they've been brought over here, and they're smart and they're wise. And Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they all belong in this group. And they all about ready to get themselves killed. Wow. Then Daniel replied with discretion and discernment to Arioch, the captain of the king's bodyguard, who had gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. And he said to Arioch, the king's commander, for what reason is the decree from the king so urgent? Then Arioch informed Daniel about the matter. So Daniel went in and requested of the king that he would give him time in order that he might declare the interpretation to the king. So Daniel's stepping up. He's stepping up and saying, give me time. Give me time. Now, remember what we read back in chapter 1 of Daniel? Back in Daniel chapter 1, verse 17, it says, talking about Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, to these 4 young men God gave what? Knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. Did God give him that ability? That's what it says. So here we go. This isn't the first time we've seen this in the Bible, has it? Remember the story of Joseph with Pharaoh, right? When he was in jail, he can interpret the dreams. Do you remember that? Yeah. Do you remember Pilate's wife? Pilate's wife had a dream also, right? Hey, don't harm Jesus. Don't do that. She had a dream that really moved her. Nebuchadnezzar here is having a dream in chapter 2, and we'll see again in chapter 4. And then here at Daniel, we're going to see as we continue that Daniel is going to have some visions and dreams also in chapter 7, 8, 10, 11, and 12. Wow. He has some dreams too. Does God work this way? Does he work with people in certain times and places with dreams? Apparently he does. Again, we're kind of taking God out of the box here and see how he operates with some people. And he works with dreams. Excuse me. Then Daniel went to the house and informed his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, about the matter. This is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Okay. So that what? So that they might request compassion from the God of heaven concerning this matter. Look, these guys are about ready to get killed. And so he says, look, let's pray about this. I want you 3 to pray about it. I'm going to be praying about it. That God would show us compassion. So that Daniel and his friends would not be destroyed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Okay? So these guys are going to do some praying, aren't they? They're going to make some requests of God. Then the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. And Daniel said, let the name of God be blessed forever and ever. For wisdom and power belong to him. It is he who changes the times and the seasons. That's what this word means here, okay? Epochs. He removes kings and establishes kings. He does what? He changes the times and the seasons. I thought that was Mother Nature. Haven't read about Mother Nature in the Bible, but I do read about a God who controls the weather and this world and its seasons. And he removes kings and establishes kings, not man. Boy, that's so important. Remember the title of this lesson? The God who rules the nations. He rules, doesn't he? King Nebuchadnezzar is in his hand. And he says he gives wisdom to wise men and knowledge to men of understanding. It is he who reveals the profound and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. To you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise, for you have given me wisdom and power. Even now you have made known to me what we request of you, for you have made known to us the king's matter. Well, that's the first thing you ought to do, right? When God helps you, when God blesses you, is to go back and bless God and to thank him for doing these things for him. It's the first thing you ought to do. I don't always do that. I need to do better. God is so, so wonderful in our lives. And sometimes we don't recognize it. Verse 24. Therefore Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and spoke to him as follows. Do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. Take me to the king's presence, and I will declare the interpretation to the king. Then Arioch hurriedly brought Daniel into the king's presence and spoke to him as follows. Apparently he didn't want to kill these guys. I've found a man among the exiles from Judah who can make the interpretation known to the king. The king said to Daniel, whose name was Belshazzar. Remember, his name was changed, right? When he was brought into slavery. Are you able to make known to me the dream which I have seen and its interpretation? Are you able to do that? Boy, I like the answer. So Daniel replied, No, no. The answer is no. No wise man, enchanter, magician, diviner can explain the king the mystery he is asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. Daniel's saying, don't look to me, man. I may give you the answer, but it ain't coming from me. It's coming from God. Gives God all the credit. And that's what we ought to do. We ought to give God all the credit. He has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in the days to come. Your dream and the visions that pass through your mind as you lay on your bed are these. So get ready, King. I'm about ready to tell you what the dream was. As for you, O King, while you were on your bed, your thoughts turned to what would take place in the future. And he who reveals mysteries has made known to you what will take place. But as for me, this mystery has not been revealed to me for any wisdom residing in me or more than in any other living man, but for the purpose of making the interpretation known to the king, and that you may understand the thoughts of your mind. So there he is. He's telling him the dream, isn't he? There's the king. He's listening. He's listening. Now, could you imagine somebody telling you what the dream that you had was, and then explaining you the interpretation? Something that just moved you so powerfully. So verse 31 says, You looked, O king, and there before you stood a large statue. An enormous, dazzling statue. Awesome in appearance. The head of the statue was made of pure gold. So here's this large statue. Here's the first part. Its chest and arms was of silver. That's the second part. Its belly and thighs of bronze. That's the third part. And its legs of iron. Its feet partly of iron and partly of baked clay. While you were watching, a rock was cut out, but not by human hands. This is spiritual, isn't it? So there you are. There's your vision that he has. Here's these different parts. You've got the head of gold, the chest and arms of silver, the belly and thighs of bronze, and the legs of iron, and the feet of both iron and clay. So there you have it. You've got these pieces. Now that's quite a dream to have. Can you imagine Daniel sitting there and telling you word for word of exactly what he is seeing? What happened? This rock that was cut out not by human hands. This means it's spiritual. It means something God is doing. It struck the statue on its feet. of iron and clay, smashed them. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, the gold were broken in pieces at the same time and became like chaff on the threshing floor in the summer. The wind swept them away without leaving a trace. But the rock that struck the statue became a huge mountain and filled the whole earth. There it is. This rock comes slamming in, busts this thing all to pieces, and it grows into a great mountain and fills the entire earth. Now that was his dream. That's the dream that he's seen. He's told him that. But he hasn't given him the interpretation yet, has he? Not yet. So, here's King Nebuchadnezzar's dream interpreted. And it starts in verse 36. Now watch the interpretation. Because all we know is we got this dream. He told him what the dream was. This was the dream, and now we will interpret it to the king. You, O king, are the King of Kings. The God of heaven has given you dominion and power and might and glory. Who gave this guy power? It wasn't King Nebuchadnezzar, was it? No, it was God. He gives them power. And in your hands he has placed mankind and the beasts of the field, the birds of the air, wherever they live, he has made you ruler over them all. You are the head of gold. Oh, I've got this dream. Got these different parts. I'm the head of gold. Okay? So, who is this? This is the Babylonian kingdom, right? And it went from 605 to 539 BC. Okay? When they dominated the world at this time. And there's the Babylonian Empire. Now, I'm going to stretch this out a little bit farther because I don't believe that these maps go quite as far as they should. But it actually extended even farther, the Babylonian Empire, than what shows here. But they took over a big chunk of the known world at that time. Remember, this was a long time ago. Okay? So there it is. He's the head of gold. Verse 39, after you, another kingdom will arise. Oh, so you start to see these are kingdoms, aren't they? Inferior to yours. Well, that's the chest and arms of silver. And that's going to be the Medo-Persian kingdom that's going to come in 539 and reign till 332 BC. The Medo-Persian Empire. Okay? And you can see that they took even over more territory than the Babylonians did. There's that chest of silver. Then you're going to come to a third kingdom, one of bronze. And he will rule over the whole earth. So this third kingdom is going to rule the whole earth. Who's that going to be? That's going to be that belly and thighs of bronze. This is going to be the Grecian Empire, and they're going to go from 332 to 63, 62 BC, right in there. That's how long they're going to reign. And this is going to be Alexander the Great. You can get any history book out and just follow these kingdoms, and they're just right in order here. Okay? All right, so this is a dream he's having. King Nebuchadnezzar's never going to see this. He's going to be dead and gone after these things happen, right? Then there's the Grecian Empire, and it went all the way to India. I mean, it went a long ways. King Alexander just went to town. He took over a lot of the known world at that time. And then finally, there'll be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron. For iron breaks and smashes everything. But as iron breaks things to pieces, so it will crush and break all the others. So it's going to just take over all these other nations, all these other kingdoms. And just as you saw that the feet and the toes were partly of baked clay and partly of iron, so this will be a divided kingdom. Same kingdom, still a fourth kingdom, but it's going to be divided. Yet it will have some of the strength of iron in it, even as you saw iron mixed with clay. So it's going to have some iron, and it's going to have some clay. Same kingdom, fourth kingdom. As for the toes, we're partly iron and partly clay, so this kingdom will be partly strong and partly brittle. So it's going to have some strong moments and it's going to have some weak moments, all within this kingdom. And just as you saw the iron mixed with baked clay, so the people will be a mixture and will not remain united, any more than iron mixes with clay. So they're going to have some divisions within that group, aren't they? Yes, they are. Now, who is this? Well, we know who the next kingdom it was that came along. It was the Roman Empire, okay? And this is the legs of iron with feet and iron mixed with clay. And they reigned from about 63 BC or 62 BC to 445 AD until they finally came to an end. They will take over more of the known world at that time than any other nation on the planet. And they went all the way up. They went all the way up to Britain. And, I mean, it was an extensive empire, huge. So there's the legs and feet. Now, here's what I want to do. I want to make a connection between chapter 2 and chapter 7. I know we're leaving a little bit, but I want to show you this because this is important, okay? See, in chapter 7, Daniel is going to have a dream. And we're going to see, I want you to look in your folders here, your notebooks, if you've got your notebook with you, and see these new handouts that we had this week, that we're dealing with two different dreams. We're dealing with two different pictures. Here in Daniel chapter 2, you have a picture of the statue. In Daniel chapter 7, you have animals. Okay? There's 4 on each side. It's 2 pictures, it's 2 dreams, but it's the same 4 kingdoms. So Daniel has one dream, Nebuchadnezzar has the other. And it keeps pointing to these 4. Picture it a little differently, but all saying the same thing. So when we skip over to chapter 7, and we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here, watch what it says about this 4th kingdom. Because we just talked about the Roman Empire, right? So here we go. We can see that these animals represent a kingdom, just like those parts of the statue represented kingdoms, right? It says a 4th kingdom. The 4th beast shall be a 4th kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all the other kingdoms, and it will devour the whole earth. Now again, this is Rome, okay? We'll discuss this next time we come together. We'll discuss chapter 7. It will trample it and break it into pieces. So it's going to trample all those other kingdoms just like chapter 2 said. Now watch. Here's a little bit of difference in this picture here. And he's going to make reference to this. And saying this is an important point here. The 10 horns that are on this beast are 10 what? Kings. Who shall arise from what? This kingdom. Okay, kings come out of this kingdom. And then, you got 10, another shall rise after them. He shall be different from the first ones. And he shall do what? He shall subdue 3 kings. He shall speak promptious words against the Most High. So he's going to speak against the Most High. He shall persecute the saints of the Most High. Now, what do you think about that? Do you like that part right there where God is giving a prophecy here, pointing to the future, pointing to the Roman Empire, and it's actually saying that this king will come along and persecute the saints of the Most High, coming from the Roman Empire. Do you like that? Do you like that? Well, wait a minute, though. We already saw how God set up King Nebuchadnezzar. What did King Nebuchadnezzar do? Go in and destroy the Israelites? Haul the rest of them into slavery? Did God allow him to do that? He did. He did. So the same way that he used this king, he's going to use a king in the future coming from the Roman Empire. And he's going to persecute the Christians, right? And shall intend to change times and laws. Okay? We're going to see when we get to these kings, when we get over to the book of Revelation, that's exactly what this king's going to do. He's going to try to change the calendar, and he's going to change laws. But then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. Time, times, and half a time. Time is 1, times is 2. You add the 2 to 1, you have 3, and then a half a time, 3.5. We're going to learn as we go through here, we're going to have a study on this, that numbers have meanings. Okay? 3.5 is what you've got here. They're going to be handed over for 3.5. 3.5 is half a 7. 7 means complete. God completed and rested on the seventh day, right? Completed his creation. It's complete. So it's God's number. What's half of 7? 3.5. So if 7 is complete, 3.5 is incomplete. For some incomplete time, the saints will be handed over to this Roman ruler and be persecuted. No dates. Well, it's going to start on this day, it's going to end on this day. Nope, didn't say that. For some incomplete time. That's all it says. Just that simple. Make it easy. Okay? So don't be looking for your starting and ending times. God doesn't always give that, does he? No, he does not. We're going to see this all through the book of Revelation. Okay. So, there it is. You've got these feet, which is the Roman Empire. You got some iron, and you got some clay. Fourth kingdom, Roman Empire, strong as iron, weak as clay. Now, I want you to see this chart. You should have this with your workbook. But here are you've got the 4 kingdoms, okay? And then you get down to Daniel chapter 2 and 7, and it's going to deal with this 4th kingdom. And in chapter 7, it's going to deal with those kings. Well, the kings that come from the Roman Empire are called what? Caesars. The Roman Empire had Caesars. Now, when we think of Caesars, we think of the very first Caesar as Julius Caesar. We need to understand that even though he was called that, he was not a Caesar. He was not an emperor. He was actually on his way to become emperor and was assassinated on the way. He never became Caesar. Excuse me. So, the first Caesar is Caesar Augustus. And then Caesar Tiberius and Caligula, Claudius, and Nero. Okay? Now remember, this beast in Daniel chapter 7 had 7 horns. There's 5 of them. But notice these other 3. Galba, Otha, and Vitellius. They only reigned for a couple of months each. They were assassinating Caesars like nobody's business. Now remember what the text said? He said there were 10, and then there was an 11th. And this 11th was going to subdue 3 kings. Okay? The next one you have is Vespasian and then Titus. Number 11 will be Domitian. Now let me try to explain to you what happens when we go back into history. And I'm going to try to tell you this, but we're going to go over this a couple of times again. Okay? So you're going to hear this more than once. Galba, Otha, and Vitellius were all assassinated, all right, during this time. During this time, Jerusalem has been, this is going to be, during this time after Jesus, okay? Jerusalem is going to be attacked. The Romans are going to come in and lay a siege to Jerusalem in 68 and 69 AD. Okay? Guess who's going to do that? Vespasian. He is a general. So he's over there in Jerusalem, and he's laid siege to the city because they've just gotten totally out of control. They rule this part of the world, right? And he's got a siege to the city. Well, then, what happens? There is so much chaos back in Rome with these Caesars losing their heads every couple of months, that Vespasian is called back. He brings the army with him, and he goes back and shores things up. So this is a weak part during the Roman Empire. That's the clay. Things are going crazy back there. So they make him emperor. They make him Caesar, okay? And he shores things up. And then he lives for 10 years. He reigns for 10 years. And then Titus, his son, takes over. And then comes his second son, Domitian. Now, what we're going to see is Domitian was back there when all this chaos was going on, and he was behind the scenes causing a lot of this chaos. So his dad, Vespasian, comes home and slaps his hand and says, "Knock it off, son." And he goes away. But then he comes back again, and he's made Caesar. Now, this is the guy that's going to be different than all the other Caesars. Because when he becomes Caesar, he's going to do one thing different than all the other Caesars did. All the other Caesars, when they died, they were made to be a god. Not Domitian. He says, look, the day I start, I'm God right now, and you're going to worship me. And this is going to bring us to the book of Revelation. And those Christians are going to have a hard time with that, aren't they? They're not going to want to worship him because they're not supposed to worship a man. They're supposed to only worship God. And so that's going to bring that persecution. The saints will be handed over them for a time, times and half a time. And when we get to the Revelation, we'll see that he was, now is not, and then will come again. So he was on the scene. At the time the book of Revelation is written, he's not, but he's coming back. And he's going to rain havoc. This is the bad guy. This guy will kill more Christians than any other person on the planet. It says in Roman history during the time of Domitian that there were so many crucifixions of Christians and other people that Rome literally ran out of lumber. Can you imagine that? Is this what this is talking about? Is this pointing to the future? It is. The book of Daniel is pointing to the future. Now, our religious world has made a mess of this whole thing, okay? Caused us all kinds of problems. But what I wanted you to see is that you got your strength and your weakness. Partly brittle, partly strong, right? It was weak for a while, and it was strong for a while. Back and forth. So, there's that rock, slams into it, destroys all that. And what happens? In the time of those kings. In the time of what kings? Those kings. Those Caesars. The God of heaven will set up a kingdom that what? Will never be destroyed. But it will itself endure forever. When? During the time of those kings. So, there's that rock. It slams into that mountain. Grows in or slams into that statue. Destroys it. It grows into a great mountain and fills the whole earth. During the time of those kings. You see those kings? Who came during the time of those kings? Who came during the time of Augustus and Tiberius? Jesus. That's right. Jesus came during the time of those kings. And did he set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed? Yes. When did that happen? Day of Pentecost. And it'll never be destroyed. And it happened during the time of those kings, just like Daniel said. It'll never come to an end. And it never has. You are proof. Look in the mirror today and you will see that this has not come to an end. You're still there, right? And what does Jesus say to his apostles back in Matthew? He said to Peter, and upon this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not overpower it. It means it's not going to come to an end. And I'll give you the keys of the what? The kingdom of heaven. Peter's going to have those keys. He's going to be the one to preach to the Jews on the day of Pentecost. He's going to be the first one. And he's going to be the first one to preach to the Gentiles. Acts chapter 10. He's got the key. He's going to open the door and tell you how you can get into the kingdom that will never come to an end. Ah, there it is. I got it. Amazing. Amazing. All coming back from the book of Daniel. I know I just threw a monster pile at you, okay? I know this was a lot. But you think about that. Remember that rock? It grew into a mountain and it filled the whole earth. And you're living proof of it. It's all over the world. Wow. What an amazing book. That is amazing, isn't it? I hope you've learned something today. Hope I didn't lose you too bad. I know this is deep. We'll try to go slow and get this, okay? You're taking on a lot of history. You're taking on a lot of things here, but I pray it makes sense. And you're not going to get it all. I don't get it all, but if we can just get little pieces, put those little pieces together, little by little, it's all going to make sense. Church, God bless you. I appreciate you staying with us, and I pray that these lessons are very helpful for you. We love you, and we'll see you next time.